Good morning. I would like to call this meeting of the Clackamas County Commission to order and ask you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This morning under presentations, we have a unique proclamation, which I think it would be hard for anyone to oppose, relative to eating dinner. And we have Rod Cook with us today to explain the background on this proclamation.
Members of the board, Chair Leanne, thank you for allowing us to come before you today to declare September 26, 2011, a family day, a day to eat dinner with your children in Clackamas County. Family Day, a day to eat dinner with your children, was launched in 2001 by the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University. Family Day is a national movement that informs parents that the engagement fostered during frequent family dinners is an effective tool to help keep America's children substance-free. Powerful outcomes have been associated with frequency of family dinners. Research shows that when compared to teens who eat dinner with family 5 or more times per week, teens who have fewer than 3 family dinners per week are more than twice as likely to have used marijuana in the past 30 days, nearly twice as likely to have drank alcohol or used tobacco in the past 30 days, more than 1.5 times likely to have gotten drunk in the past 30 days. We know that the most frequently abused substance among our nation's youth is alcohol. Clackamas County youth rates of alcohol and drug use mirror that of the nation. Our most recent data indicates that 21% of 8th graders and 38% of 11th graders report using alcohol at least once in the past 30 days. Physical and social consequences of alcohol abuse among our youth are serious and range from alcohol poisoning, drunk driving, risky sexual behavior, physical aggression, sexual assault, and suicide. There are also concerning rates of marijuana use among our county's youth. 11% of 8th graders and 24% of 11th graders report they have used marijuana in the last 30 days. The benefits for family dinners can begin as early as toddler years. Toddlers learn an array of skills by eating dinner with their families. They learn that they are an important part of their families by sitting with everyone else. Toddlers who eat dinner at the table with their families have a better language development than toddlers who don't. Important social skills such as table manners, utensil use, listening skills, please and thank you, opinion sharing, discussions, helping to prepare food, helping in cleaning the kitchen, as well as invaluable focused time with their parents are all benefits of family dinners. Clackamas County Commission on Children and Families, through the Children and Youth Families Division, is actively supporting and developing evidence-based programs and initiatives that work towards preventing youth drug and alcohol use, promoting family togetherness, and beginning family dinners early. Some of the programs and initiatives underway in our county include the Clackamas County Prevention Coalition, which meets monthly to develop and implement effective strategies to reduce youth drug and alcohol use, Above the Influence campaign that you saw a few weeks ago, project using youth photography across Clackamas County to incorporate teen perspectives into prevention planning. PreventNet Schools is a collaboration between the Commission, local schools, and nonprofits providing prevention program for youth at the school site based on Extended Services Schools Initiative. Project Alert, an evidence-based drug and alcohol prevention program for youth in participating Clackamas County schools. The Healthy Start, Healthy Families home visitors discuss the importance of family dinners with new parents while their children are toddlers. Strategic Prevention Framework Initiative addresses binge drinking in 18 to 25-year-olds. And last, supporting the development of community drug and alcohol prevention coalitions, including Gladstone Youth Coalition, Drug-Free Estacada Families and Youth Coalition, Sandy Community Partners Coalition, Vibrant Futures of Milwaukee Coalition, Malala Weed and Seed Coalition, and our newest coalition, Oregon City Together. And with us today, we have Oregon City's Mayor Doug Neely and Coalition Coordinator Elizabeth Russell to talk about their great work that's happening in Oregon City. So if I can invite them up to the table.
Good morning, members of the board. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to address you today. My name is Elizabeth Russell. I'm with Oregon City Together. We're a forming coalition focused on reducing substance abuse in Oregon City. And did I mention I'm the coordinator? So I have the privilege of working with Rodney Cook and his office as a mentee. So we're learning quite a bit about the strategic prevention framework and how to apply a public health perspective to substance abuse in young people. And our intention is to use that lens and to coordinate efforts between all the different sectors of Oregon City, including government, youth, parents, schools, the faith communities, the business communities, et cetera, because what we're seeing is that the more we collaborate to create an environment that supports positive choices, we're allowing youth to make their own choices inside of a positive culture. That culture change is something that I believe Family Day contributes to, and it does represent a very significant thing beyond just a gesture. Just really want to thank you for creating that for us. And in Oregon City, we have also issued a similar proclamation from our city offices, which we're thankful to our mayor for doing. I'll pass it over to you now to share.
The reason I'm here is a personal note, not so much as mayor of Oregon City. This is really, in our country, the third generation of serious drug abuse we're in. I have 4 children. About 25 years ago, two of them had grown up and were out of the household. We still had 2 children in the household. 2 daughters. One was 16. One was 17. The youngest daughter had become a heroin addict. We were unaware of it. She was getting straight A's. She hid her addiction very well from us. She'd be studying at night, and unbeknownst to us, she'd open up her bedroom window and take off and then come up back at some other point in the night. The other sister knew of her drug addiction and, of course, wanted to have her back, didn't want to tell her parents about it. And I think it was largely a lack of communication that we had with our kids that resulted in this. She got arrested for alcohol possession, and after that happened, we found out about her serious drug addiction. Her sister then became an ally with us in trying to deal with it, but it got worse and worse to the point we had no control. We had counselors working with us, and they told us that at that point it had to be really tough love on our part, and it was. We ultimately locked her out of the house because she had threatened to kill us. Her situation became extremely bad. She was living with a person who was dealing the drugs. While they were out with a couple of other addicts driving, they picked up a hitchhiker, and the guy she was living with slit the hitchhiker's throat in a restroom. At this time, she recognized she was in real trouble. She tried to make contact with us, but as soon as we got there, she disappeared. However, we were able to work with a school resource officer that came in and arrested her. She never showed up for her trial, so there was a warrant on her minor alcohol use. We were able to get her arrested, and then in the state in which we lived, if we could produce a document that was stated that she was, from a psychiatrist, that she was either a threat to herself or others, we could have her then committed to a medical program that she couldn't leave until they were that they were certain that she had got over the problem. We were able to divert her out of the criminal justice system and into the program. The program was successful, but so things ultimately worked out, and she's got children of her own. She's happily married, but it could have very well gone the other direction. I think if there were better communication at that time in the family, maybe her sister, if she wouldn't have told us about it, maybe her sister would have, and we could have intervened at an earlier time. It's not about having one meal a month with your kids. It's really about communication, but I think that's what's being put forward here, and I think it's a really important thing. I hope we've talked about, and I hope in the next year we're able to come up with funding in the city to supply a second a second school resource officer to the middle schools. We had one at one point, and because of our financial conditions several years ago, we dropped it down to one. And of course, these issues are issues within the middle schools now as well. So I hope the city can work in that direction. But I simply want to give you a personal testimony how important parental communication with children is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to thank Mayor Neely for that testimonial just now. I have been impressed by your leadership in all kinds of ways, but this is a whole new kind of and level of leadership that is so important. And I share your sentiment that keeping our kids safe from addiction and strong families is one of the most important things. And as I have made my choice to not pursue election for another term, one of the reasons is so that I can be more present with my family. So I just really admire your leadership, and thank you for your courage in that testimonial, and good for your daughter to have put things together. That's great.
I'd like to add a little bit there. I think that having dinner with your kids is something that I have been very fortunate through my business career, be able to come home most evenings and spend dinner with my family. And being a commissioner is maybe a challenge to do that sometimes. So I'm not at home with my kids very often as much, but they're also grown up, and often they're at work or at school. So, just from that standpoint, they're 22 and 18. So it really is an opportunity to sit down with your family and connect. And I know that when some other my kids' friends came over, they were like, wow, this is really so neat to be able to sit down with your family. So you don't really realize it, how valuable that is, but it really is important to sit down, and that opportunity to communicate with your kids is huge, and kind of miss that.
We'll have our discussion now.
First, Mayor Neely, I really appreciate your how brave you are to come over, and I feel privileged to have heard what you had to share with us, and to share that with everybody viewing this meeting today is it's very brave of you to do that, and I appreciate that. I hope that people will take heed to what you have, your story. Along those lines, I agree with what everyone has said about the importance of having dinner with your family. As a commissioner, it's very challenging, and I encourage you to not underestimate the power of breakfast. That breakfast with your family can be just as powerful as dinner with your family, and often that's what we do in our family, and we have a tradition of Sunday morning breakfast. And like you had said, Commissioner Savas, we have our daughter's friends are invited over sometimes to spend the night on Saturday because they've heard tales of Sunday morning breakfast at the Damons, and it's a real community building time and a great time to catch up on the week that's passed and what's coming up in the coming week. But again, I just really want to thank you for sharing.
You want to throw anything in,
Well,
Commissioner Bernard?
I agree with all that's been said, and I appreciate you coming today. Our family was more about eating liver than sitting down and talking, but it was always a great opportunity. My mother was a stay-at-home mom, and we all appreciated having her there to help us through some of those times, those tougher times. Recently just got back from visiting my brother in Boston. It's been 3 years since I've seen him. I hope he comes home sometime. I'm trying to convince him to come home and sit down and communicate. But it's tough to stand up here and talk about those issues that are very personal, and I appreciate that. Thank you, and you're a great mayor. Enjoy having the opportunity to work with you.
Well, I usually comment last, and the trouble is everyone has said everything that I was going to say, pretty much. And likewise, I certainly appreciate Mayor Neely's coming forward. That takes a lot of courage to tell your personal story in so compelling a way, and yet it's so important for us to hear. I think a lot of us from my generation took for granted the family dinner time, as Commissioner Bernard said, because shoot, if you didn't show up for dinner, you probably weren't going to eat, and the snacking was not available, so we were starving by the time we got to dinner, But I grew up in a 3-generation household. My grandfather was part of our household, and as a child development specialist, which is my education background, I can say that it's not only a matter of what goes on, as you were saying with toddlers. It's not just the communication aspect or the socialization skills that are developed. There's a lot of cognitive development that goes on in that setting where children can see adults interacting and discussing issues with that they may not agree on, but to be able to see how people problem solve, which is a lot of what goes on around the dinner table. I think it is those cognitive skills that also add to children's ability to make decisions later on things like substance abuse or other things, because they have modeled how adults discuss things with each other, with children at the dinner table. There's a lot of modeling and development that goes on in that kind of setting, and the more frequently it can occur, the clearly the better it is. And the benefits, of course, accrue really to the whole family. The impacts on children have been studied more, but the benefits accrue to everyone at that table. So I think, as I started out to say, this is certainly a proclamation that I think you'd have a hard time finding someone to oppose, and easy for everyone to get behind. So I would entertain a motion.
Rod needs to read the proclamation.
Oh, we would like to hear the proclamation, and then I will entertain a motion to approve it.
Okay. Proclaiming September 26, 2011 as Family Day, a day to eat dinner with your children for Clackamas County. Whereas more than 10 years of research conducted by the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University has consistently found that the more often children and teenagers eat dinner with their families, the less likely they are to smoke, drink, and use illegal drugs. Whereas teenagers who eat dinner with their families 2 times a week or less, or 3.5 times, are 3.5 times as likely to have used prescription drugs, illegal drugs, and 3 times more likely to have used marijuana. Whereas teenagers who eat dinner with their families are half as likely to smoke cigarettes, smoke marijuana, and drink alcohol. Whereas the correlation between family dinners and reduced risk for teen substance abuse are well documented. Whereas parental engagement is known to be one of the most crucial factors in determining the likelihood of substance abuse by teenagers. Whereas kids are particularly vulnerable to substance abuse during transitions from elementary to middle to high school, and from high school to college. Whereas toddlers benefit from family dinners by learning an array of skills such as table manners, family dynamics, social skills, language development, and an open mind to trying new and healthy foods. Whereas toddlers and young children gain self-esteem, learning that they are an important part of their family, sitting at the table with everyone else. And whereas family dinners have long constituted a substantial pillar of family life in America, now therefore, the Clackamas County Board of County Commissioners do hereby proclaim Monday the 26th day of September 2011 as Family Day, a day to eat dinner with your children. In Clackamas County, Oregon, we encourage all families to join in this observance and urge all families to eat dinner with their children.
Thank you very much. Now I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we proclaim September 26, 2011 as Family Day in Clackamas County, a day to eat dinner with your children.
And I second that.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bernard and seconded by Commissioner Damon that we proclaim September 26, 2011 as Family Day in Clackamas County. Is there any other discussion on this matter that will be discussed thoroughly? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that passes unanimously. I have no discussion items before us today. Thank you, Rod. And so that brings us to citizen communication. And I have... No, yeah, they did.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
Thank you. So under citizen communication, I have Yvonne Lazarus.
Good morning. On September 6th, excuse me, I
your
always
name and
forget
address.
to do this because I don't think anybody cares anyway. My name is Yvonne Lazarus. I live at 2063 Southeast Torbank Road, Milwaukee, Oregon. On September 6th, 2011, at the Urban Renewal Meeting with Commissioners, Commissioner Bernard was asked to recuse himself. Sir, do you not still own commercial property that will be affected by the Portland-Milwaukee light rail? I am asking you to please recuse yourself for this reason. Do you have any comment for me?
Nope.
If I have a few more minutes, and I do here, I would like to comment on the meeting of last week, where we are to have consideration for one another. I want all of you to please realize your constituents are not feeling that way. They do not feel you're being considerate of us in any shape or form. That's all. Thank you.
And then I have Richard Langdon.
Good morning. My name is Richard Langdon. You have my address from many previous times testifying here before the board. Let me first say that I would like to thank all the viewers at home for all the emails and letters and telephone calls that have showed up. I can't tell you how nice it is. I'd like to encourage you to come on down here and speak and let the commissioners know how you feel personally. And better than that, why don't you ask them some questions and wait for a response. Get the courage. I know it's a scary place here, designed purposely for that. But get over it. Come on down. Thanks. My first agenda item today is to support Les Poole's run for a county commissioner seat. Jim Bernard was gracious enough, I understand, to propose such an idea. And so I would like to second that proposal for Les Poole's run for Commissioner Bernard's seat in 2014. Les Poole is well qualified for it. I hope he puts it together and does it. Be great. Second, I'd like to speak to the idea that commissioners are going to adopt some rules for citizen testimony. I've been advised to note for the record that any mandatory rules adopted by the commissioners that in any way prohibit the freedom of speech of citizens is a violation of state and federal law. It's clear. You're on notice. Next, I'd like to speak to the concern of the feeling of intimidation felt by some people who come to testify before this body. The Charlotte Lehan claimed that just a short while ago that she was sympathetic to the intimidation felt by those speaking here in this public space. Well, most people would say, "Are you serious?" This entire room is designed with one of the sole purposes is to intimidate the citizens of Clackamas County. That's what this is about. Now, if you were serious, Charlotte Lehan, about trying to make it comfortable for more people to come forward and testify, which they're afraid to do. Look at this place. You would move into a different space, a space with just simple tables and chairs, all on the same grade. And then you would apologize for any past behavior, and you would sit down and start having a communication, having a dialogue with those folks about the future and the betterment of Clackamas County. That would go a long ways towards solving the problem, the rift that has been mentioned. Thanks for your time. Good day.
Thank you. I don't have any more cards. It brings us to the consent agenda, and I will ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
Okay. Under Business and Community Services, approval of Amendment Number 2 to the contract with Scott Edwards Architectural LLP for architectural and engineering services in the development of the Happy Valley Library. Under Elected Officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes. And under the Development Agency, approval of a second amendment to the owner participant and development agreement for the Mount Hood Cultural Center and Museum under the Government Camp Village Revitalization Plan. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you. That's a brief consent agenda.
It's short.
I will remind our viewers, if you are new to us, that you should see on your screens the page on the website where you can access the full agenda packets for any of these items if you want to, if you're interested in them in more detail. And with that, we will move to Commissioner Communication and perhaps start with Commissioner Savas,
Okay.
unless you don't want to go back.
Sure. It's just happening. Everything's happening so quickly.
So quickly,
Yes.
I haven't had time.
Was not really prepared. Well, I'd like to, share with my fellow commissioners that the last.
Oh, we didn't. We didn't. Oh, we've got ahead of ourselves.
Too quick. You were
Sorry.
right.
Yeah, there was
Too
something.
quick.
Madam
we
Chair,
forgot.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
And I second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bernard and seconded by Commissioner Damon that we approve the very brief consent agenda. And I'm presuming there's no discussion on any of these items. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I have been attended a series of county college classes, which is kind of like a program to bring new commissioners up to speed on all the state mandated services and all the different things that counties do. And along with all the other duties and responsibilities we have and events that we try to go to, I've missed out on a lot. And I understand you all had a great opening at Camp Withicum on Friday, which I was not able to attend. I was considering maybe driving down there and, in the middle of my class and coming back up because I really wanted to be there. But I'm kind of glad I stayed because right during that period of time, we had a presentation from our folks at the State Veterans Office on veterans benefits and how different counties deal with that. And I have learned that the staffing of the veterans offices has a relationship to how many people they can serve, how many of our veterans they can serve. And Clackamas County and Lane County, interestingly enough, stack up pretty close in numbers. However, in staffing, at least they stack up very similar in the population of veterans and how many people, reside within that county. But the number of people served in Lane County is significantly higher, about 50% higher actually than Clackamas County. And so from talking to folks, I think we could do a lot better job maybe. And there's a lot of underserved people, veterans out there that either are not able to get in the calendar within several weeks or are not really aware of the services we provide. So I would really like to advocate that we really look really hard at how we staff that and look at the numbers from the Veterans Office that demonstrate how much better of a job Lane County is doing. They have 3 veteran service officers. We have 2, and they have a little bit larger offices so they can house some volunteers that come in on volunteer time and provide assistance to the veteran service officers. So I'd like to really advocate for that for a very small cost relative to the amount of veterans benefits that they would receive. It's, I think, a huge benefit to Clackamas County and our veterans who have served our country.
Okay. Yeah. Just to respond to that, we did chat a little bit about that at study session, and I thought it was exciting news and certainly worth the trip to Eugene. So I think staff is looking into that, and we will have more to report.
Yeah, well, we can move that along pretty quickly.
Yeah. Commissioner Leininger.
Sure. Yesterday night, I had the opportunity to go to our Community Health Council meeting, and it is producing really important results. We at the county run some health clinics and provide addiction treatment, mental health care, and physical health care to a bunch of really fragile people. And because of the Community Health Council, we are able to qualify for a really important federal status called Federally Qualified Health Center status. And as a result of that, we're able to get $9 million more a year in federal funds to help support delivery of health services to fragile people in the county than we otherwise could. So when I was talking to the folks, I thanked them for their tremendous volunteer work. This is half consumers, clients of our clinics, so and half community members, but people who have a lot of other things going on, who are busy, who may not have transportation, and they give their time. And because they give their time, we get $9 million more a year. And in addition, they've overseen and encouraged us to do some important things this year. When I came into elected office about 2.5 years ago, we were at a situation where we were closing down, even though our county is more square miles than Rhode Island, big place. We were closing down satellite clinics and consolidating everything on the Red Soils campus. And it's a great clinic up here, but if you're in Payne and you live in Zigzag or Malino, it's a really long trip and not necessarily the best fit for your needs. And so since then, a couple of really exciting things have happened. The Health Council's leadership and our administrative team and H3S team have stabilized the operations of Beaver Creek and the Oregon City High School School-Based Health Center and the Canby High School School-Based Health Center. We've contributed funds to help start the Milwaukee High School School-Based Health Center, and they've gotten big grants. We're looking at whether or not in Sandy, where they're building a new high school, there may be an opportunity for us to provide some health services on site, and really significantly, we're in the process of developing a new federally qualified health center in the Sunnyside area in Clackamas, and that should be open in around January. As a result of that, we're going to be able to serve, and other steps, we're going to be able to serve 13,000 more people a year than before. These are really fragile people who have maybe no other options for health care. So, there are challenging things happening in our county, and there are plenty of disagreements about what we should do next, but I hope everyone will join me in thanking the Community Health Council and recognizing this is a really important step. Thanks.
So I've got a couple things. First is about our public testimony guidelines. We introduced this last week. They are up on our Board of County Commissioners website. And so there's just a couple things that we're interested to get some feedback on. Specifically, are these guidelines clear and understandable? Will it be useful to you and other community members? Are these guidelines welcoming to you as a person who has or may in the future testify before the Board of County Commissioners? We heard in testimony today that there's difference of opinion about the kind of environment that we're trying to create that's respectful, and there's different opinions about even shows of emotion or displays of support for various testimony. And really what we're trying to do is create an environment where diverse opinions can be heard, that emotions can be shared. And that we can listen respectfully to each other. So that's the intent of the guidelines, and they go beyond that. They also include some tips about how to prepare your testimony, a range of ways for you to talk with us and get input to us that isn't only just coming before us as in testimony as a commission or as a member of the public. So we're interested in your feedback on that. We will have brochures available at all of our meetings, and we are currently getting it out to our other commissions and boards, CPOs, for their feedback as well. So I wanted to put that out there. And then the other piece I wanted to share is yesterday, I spent the afternoon with Sergeant Thurman out on the Clackamas River as a part of our Marine unit. And there are a couple things I wanted to, if he were here, there are a few things that he would say. In these waning days of summer, people are still out on the river. We're looking for some warm weather this weekend. We probably have a few more warm weekends coming up. But to aid in his work and in our sheriff's work out on the river, I would ask that you wear your life jackets, that you don't drink alcohol on the river, and that you please take your trash home with you. There was a big river cleanup just 2 weeks ago, and even yesterday there's still trash out on the river. There are these piles of cans in the river, and we just live in too beautiful of a place to face it in that way. So if he were here, that's what he would say. He doesn't have enough folks out there on the river to be able to talk with every boater and rafter and inner tuber and air mattress rider individually, but in these waning days, do try to respect the beauty that we've got out on the river.
Mr. Bernard.
Great. First off, I've kind of made it a policy not to respond to people asking me questions. After many years sitting on the other side of this desk, I found it was not, and it wouldn't produce any value. So over the years, of course, that issue of potential or actual conflict of interest has come up many times as mayor of Milwaukee. And I've spoke to our lawyers in Milwaukee many times. The issue before the commission actually has nothing to do about the alignment of light rail. And in actuality, light rail does not touch my property, and there is no value, actual value that would come to Bernard's Garage Incorporated because of the building of light rail. It's actually on the other side of a railroad line and does not touch my property. And actually, many people have brought this up. The law actually says that any conflict, actual conflict of interest must be stated before. And I many times address the issue of potential conflict of interest. And anybody who owns property anywhere near light rail, and you could argue 1 mile, 3 miles, 5 miles, may have some potential conflict in the fact that many people say it will decrease values, many people say it will increase values. So I always said, what am I supposed to say? I'm going to lose value or I'm going to gain value. But the actual conflict does not actually touch my business. The alignment's already been decided. Stated many times as mayor of Milwaukee that there was no actual conflict of interest. So, and if you'd like to check the records at Milwaukee, I'm sure you'll see dozens of comments regarding this issue. What is before the commission is funding of light rail, which was a decision made many years ago, which we finalized just a few months back. So, you know, I don't need to state any conflict, and there is no conflict. And if anyone has a problem with it, I'm sure they're welcome to check with legal advisors to find out that that is in fact true. I just returned from what I think is a very important place. That is where our founding fathers came from. The Rock, Plymouth Rock, which I was surprised was so small, which has actually been lifted and broken a couple of times and re-cemented back together. But, you know, it's an important place. I'm kind of into reading biographies. John Adams, born and raised in Braintree. He wrote the Constitution for his state, which was the template for our Constitution. And it's, John Adams was quite a guy. Thomas Jefferson actually used John Adams' Constitution to create ours, and Thomas Jefferson was quite the writer. So the Constitution is something that's very important to me. I had an opportunity to read the Federalist Papers and Thomas Jefferson's biography, John Adams, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant, and all these people that I had an opportunity to see their great statues in the parks in Boston and on Nantucket, and where my brother lives. I haven't seen him in 3 years, so it was great to see him. And, a very important place for our country. So it was a great opportunity. Also had an opportunity to ride light rail, experienced the Big Dig, which took many, many years and has changed Boston quite a bit. Had an opportunity to walk the Freedom Trail, visit the homes of many of the important people that began the revolution and ended the revolution. So great opportunity. And then one other question. I know that in the budget process, we actually funded some additional veteran services. That is really has to do more with training opportunities and job opportunities along with our community corrections department, they have partners to provide opportunities for those individuals. Over 50% of veterans coming home will be unemployed. So a place for them to work on their resumes, apply for jobs is one of the things that we specifically identified. We had 2 veterans here for the budget process who, which I agree we could do even more. Many vets will be returning home, but was that a couple 100,000?
This came up at study session the other day, and I don't recall that exact amount, but we're actively looking into what Commissioner Savas brought forward, because it's very interesting information about the ratios and all that, and we'll have some information as soon as next week about where that stands. I can't remember the number, but I do remember the people coming forward, and we did add some money back in, so we'll bring that up as well.
Great, thank you. And that's it for me.
Okay.
Yes, well, I wanted to address a couple of things that were brought up as well in terms of the guidelines and the setting here. To clarify my previous statements about it being intimidating, it is intimidating, but that is true in almost any setting like this. And certainly none of us built this facility. Part of it is the design, however, is so that the audience can see us. Some places, and I've testified in many city council chambers, many Senate and House hearing rooms, and certainly at Metro. Some of them are on the same level, but then it's very difficult, just if you're sitting in the back rows, to see the people that you're talking to or that are being addressed. So that's the reason for elevating these desks a little bit. It is the nature of this formal meeting, but that's not unlike, as I say, all of those other venues. And when I testify, whether it's down at the Capitol or at Metro, it's very hard to not have butterflies in your stomach when you're appearing before an august body, whether it's a city council or someone else. But that it certainly is not the intention of it. But I also want to remind people that it is really, we are only in this formal setting for a couple of hours a week ordinarily, when we need to take care of formal county business. I don't think I have ever worked with a panel that is more accessible than this one. So the commissioners that I serve with make themselves available to their constituents in many ways throughout the week. We certainly are invited to a host of citizen events that we appear at, and we can't make it to all of them, but with 5 people here, we make it to a lot of community events. And if you need to talk to one of your commissioners, there are many ways that you can do that besides coming before us during these 2 hours of the week when we're in a formal meeting. So just want to assure people that they don't have to access us in this setting if this is difficult. And then I do want to say about the Camp Withacombe dedication. That was a very inspiring event. It was packed. I don't know how many people, probably close to 1,000. I don't know, between 500 and 1,000 people there. And many dignitaries, certainly from the military, but also from Japan and Australia, who are our partners there, and so many of our veterans were there from the 41st Infantry, and it is just a fabulous facility. It will serve the needs of our veterans, but every bit as important, serve the needs of our current and future servicemen and women, and the needs of their families, which are so important to support the work that they do. But I want to also mention that, which I was not aware was part of this, they have done a fabulous job with museum displays and of military things from before World War I. I don't know how far they go back, but they're just fascinating to look at the displays that they have there, and much of that is open to the public. I would encourage people to go and see the displays that they have there that go clear up through current day. And the other thing I want to mention about it is this was a huge project in Clackamas County. We're fortunate that we were chosen to host this facility, and the jobs that it created ended up being over 1,200 jobs that in the construction business that went into putting that place in place, and it is a fabulous testament to the skill of our construction laborers. It's just a beautiful facility. So do take an opportunity when you have one to go and see it. And with that,
Shirley, I just have one thing to add, if you have
Yes.
just a moment. We've talked about this the last couple of meetings, the Dollar Lake fire, and
oh yes,
I
and we're-
should probably bring some, hopefully, closure to this. I have mostly very good news. It's around 6,300 acres right now, but it's 90% contained. We have 397 people still actively working on it. There's some hot interior spots that they're working on, but some of the work is shifting to rehabilitating some of the burned areas because we'll transition soon into the rainy season, and we're worried about runoff and that sort of thing. But hopefully this will be the last update with 90% containment and probably some rain next week. That ought to do it. So that's good news.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I presume our then it was the end of the month. Our emergency.
Yeah, I
thing
think it
expires.
ended yesterday.
Oh, it ended
actually.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
We let that lapse.
And my understanding is part of what happened with the Dollar Lake fire,
Dollar Lake, right.
Dollar Lake fire, was because of the heavy snowpack this last winter. The forest floor material was so compacted that the fire couldn't move as quickly
Didn't
as
access the fuel as quickly.
as it might have ordinarily in different conditions. It had been so compacted by the heavy snowpack. But the flip side of that is that once a fire is going in there, it's very hard to put that out. So it can smolder in there for weeks and months in that compacted material. And we are just waiting for the rains.
The rains will be the thing that really finishes it off.
And we're quite confident they are on their way. But I would also say that they are not here yet. And this is a fabulous, fabulous time in Clackamas County when we have these Indian summer days. There is no better weather, no better time to get out and see how beautiful Clackamas County is from one end to the other. So take advantage of it before the rains come, because they're likely to be with us for a while. And with that, there's no further business before the commission. We are adjourned.